somebody's got a conflict and they're estranged, or they're not talking, or they're not good with each other, or even in a house with a couple, somebody's giving somebody the silent treatment or whatever. And you hear somebody and you say, well, why don't you go talk to them? I'm not going to talk to them. It's their problem. They're the ones that did. They need to come apologize to me. Okay. And what they'll do is there'll be a calculation. If I haven't done anything, I don't owe them an apology. True. If I don't owe an apology, I'm not going to them. They owe me an apology. They got to call me. All right. Let's take a test. Send out the questionnaire. If they have bothered you in some way, and then you talked about it, and y'all get in a conflict, and they get defensive, and they run off, and now they won't talk to you, and now you're estranged. And they did all of that. You're right. Send out the questionnaire. Who's the guilty party here? Well, it's them. Okay, you're right. You win. Where's the prize for that? You won. You're right. You're in the right. They're the ones that are acting more immaturely. You're right. Let's go spend your prize. Where are you going to cash that check of being right? I don't know of any right stores. All right. Now, let me tell you what I'm not talking about here. What I'm not talking about is when somebody's been abused and they've confronted it and all of that, and, somebody's being really, really hurtful or whatever, and you need to have boundaries and say, I can't have any more contact with you until A, B, C, or D, because you really have, you've gone down a path. I understand that. Please don't send me an email telling, because I've had this happen before, that I'm telling people to walk back into abuse. I'm not talking about that. So let's make that very, very clear. Okay. I understand the need for strict boundaries where there is no contact. And until you've done everything possible until somebody comes, I get that. I'm talking about more in the normal, just the warp and woof of how relationships work and estrangements and conflicts, and even throughout the day. And you hear people, they'll be talking to a friend and go have a coffee, and they're, talking the tea about the other person. And I'm not coming to them, it's their problem. If so-and-so talked to me and said, yeah, but, they should call me. Nobody's getting abused here. It's more like a conflict. All right. Here's the reality. Many, many times, if somebody else is acting immaturely, okay, they don't possess the capacity, at least at that juncture in their lives, probably to do more than they're doing. Okay. If you got a toddler throwing a temper tantrum, that's because they don't have the internal limits of self-regulation and containment and all of that to calm themselves down and use words, right? We have to help them do that. Now, I'm not calling everybody toddlers, but I'm saying sometimes how people are acting is because that's kind of the level of either maturity they have or emotional regulation they have, or how much they've been triggered or whatever it is. And basically, it's sort of like somebody is a little bit kind of like caught in a house that's on fire and the hallways are burning and they can't get out of it, right? But if we're sitting there saying, well, I'm not going to talk to them until they come talk to me, sometimes they can't. Sometimes they're unwilling, pride, rebellion, snittiness, whatever it is. Remember, you're right. I already told you you're right. But right never really by itself accomplishes much. other than if you're in court and there can be a settlement, somebody pays you, the judge says, you're right, you're wrong, pay him. Well, that's probably not going to happen here because there's no judge and there's no payment. But let me give you one more analogy. And here's what all the research shows. How many times is somebody in a hostage situation, the terrorist or the bank robber, whoever it is, they take hostages. Who makes the first step? They don't. In good faith, I'm going to release 5 hostages and walk out into the street and sit down with the cops and talk about it. No, that's not what happens. The one that's right, usually the hostage negotiator, they take the first step and they try to establish some sort of a trusting connection. The one in the right takes the first step many, many times in life. The one with the most surety is the one responsible, having the most responsibility for the process because they possess the most tools. Let me give you the science on this. Just one little example. It's been shown over and over. If you take oxytocin, which is the chemical inside of your brain that produces trust and connected behaviors and all sorts of good feeling, it's kind of, it's called the bonding chemical. Get this. When someone takes the first step and extends trust or vulnerability to another person that hasn't done it, that starts a cycle of oxytocin where the other person is, and this has been researched over and over, after somebody else takes the first vulnerable step, the other one takes the vulnerable step back. It's called the law, maybe not the law, but it's called a dynamic of reciprocity, that when somebody trusts us, we're more likely to trust them in return and return in vulnerability. All right. Now, again, let me go back with the disclaimer. I understand if you've been down this path and you are with a bad person who's just going to hurt you no matter what you do, sort of like the, what is it? The scorpion and who was it that swam the scorpion across the stream? Some kind of animal or something. They got to talking, and was it a frog? I can't remember what it was. Anyway, decided the scorpion is hurt, but needs to get across the stream, and the other says, "Well, I'll take you across. I'm a frog, or I'm a beaver, or something. I can do this." They go, "Thanks. I'm a scorpion. I can't swim." And so scorpion gets on them, they take him across, and they get right to the other side and lets it off, and the scorpion turns and stings him. And he says, "What are you doing?" "I'm the beaver. I just swam you across the thing." The scorpion goes, "Yeah, I'm a scorpion. I sting people. You swim, I sting people. That's who I am." So there are certain kinds of people that are untrustworthy, right? And they can't or don't reciprocate when you make yourself vulnerable, and that's where really severe boundaries sometimes are called for. But I'm talking about in relationships where we're estranged. And I want you to think about today, who do I need to take the first step with? Who do I need to take the first step with? Sometimes you can be in a conflict, and the one that comes in and says, I don't like this, how we're fighting. That's not what I want. I love you. I want to feel closer to you. I'm sorry for whatever's hurt. Let's talk about it. And whoever takes that first step and gets over there, well, they should call me. Okay. All the research says, if you look at, there's a 2-hour plus webinar I have on boundaries.me. You can look it up. It's called The Art of Confrontation. It's talking about difficult conversations and everything we know about the science of how to resolve these unresolvable moments where people get sideways or they're in conflict for a long time, and they truly are many times resolvable. I mean, I can tell you this is what I do. I get called into a lot of situations. It may be a board and a CEO. It may be whoever. And they're really at conflict. The whole thing's about to blow up. It's just unresolvable, right? Until they start doing the right things that we know has the greatest possibility of resolving it. And one of those is taking the first step of vulnerability and listening. Just trying to understand, not understand to negate, not understand to argue back, not understand the other side to tell them how they're wrong, and not understand the other side to be right, because you're already right. We've already decided that. And because you're right, that's what gives us the greatest responsibility. Now, the science is in on this. It's all over the place. The mature one takes the first step when a baby is screaming, blaming mama in the middle of the night for their misery, which really ought to be thanking mama for their for their life, right? But they're blaming her. She's in the right. She's really trying to help. She's a good person. And what if she said, well, baby's just going to have to come to me. You know, they just have to come to me and apologize for that. Well, that's how silly this gets sometimes. Now, I talked about the science. Let's go to the Bible. We can go over and over and over and over and over again. But just a couple of quick ways in which the scriptures talk about this. The biggest one is in what is called the gospel itself. Gospel means good news. So here's the good news. That we don't have to crawl our way into being accepted by God. Even though we're in the wrong, we're sinners, right? We've made mistakes. We've flipped him off and lived our whole life acting like we created this world. Even though we're in the wrong, he came to us. He took the first step. One of my favorite verses says that while we were yet enemies and sinners, he died for us. It'd be like if somebody were treating you as badly as is possible, and that person was convicted of a crime, and they were going to have to go to jail, and they're treating you really badly, and you're the victim, you say, you know what? I'm going to take the sentence for them. Okay, that's one place, big place. Bible talks about this. Let's get more down to the relational commandments themselves. It basically says, you know, if somebody hurts you, then you should go to them. All right, everybody's quick to do that, right? We'll go confront somebody. But it also says, if somebody's got something against you, then you go to them. So basically what the scriptures tell us is exactly what the science says. If this thing's going to get resolved, then somebody's going to take the first step. And blessed are the peacemakers. Peacemakers take the first step. So again, don't go get abused. But being right never really helped. So I always tell people, well, you can be right or you can get this thing resolved. Which one would you like? Now, by this, I don't mean that you go admit to a bunch of crap that is untrue. I'm just talking about not requiring somebody to have to crawl back to you when maybe they can't. Take the first step. Become vulnerable, unless it's not safe. Become vulnerable. Extend the hand.